our Congressman, 5th District Representative Tim Walberg. Hi, Tim.
Good to be with you.
Welcome back. Good to see you.
Well, it's always good to see you, and that coffee cup is in my office, as you know.
I know. Someone sent me a picture there in your office. I think Carolyn Bloodworth sent me a picture of that in your...
And someday we'll get you and your team out there to the office to see it personally.
Next year.
Maybe for the inauguration of Donald Trump.
Well, we'll see. It's yet to be determined. But I think a lot of people felt, and it's just sounds counter, but his fortunes changed on Saturday in two ways. He survived an assassination attempt, but it seems like his campaign benefited from the assassination attempt.
Yeah, I would concur. As I watched it myself, I said to my wife, that does it. He is going to be the next president. And it wasn't because he had simply survived a horrific act of an individual for whatever reason the individual did it. The fact that he showed leadership that I think America is looking for right now. Had the mental acuity as he felt his ear and immediately dropped to the ground, knowing that this wasn't happening right.
He popped up much too fast. If it was me, I would have stayed.
Yeah, but Trump is a fighter. But I think more than that, and I said to Sue, my wife, I said, that shows how much he loves America, but loves his supporters. And he knew as he lay down there with those amazing Secret Service people who, they're putting their bodies to take the next shot. I mean, it's unbelievable. But as he wanted to get up, he heard the screams, he heard the crying, the tears out there of his supporters. He wanted them to see that he was okay. And I think that demonstrated something to me. And then his subsequent tweets, etc., that went out expressing the need for prayers for the family of the innocent victim that was murdered out there, a guy who threw his body over his daughter. I mean, Corey, to do that again showed the hero that he was as a firefighter, but also as a father, as a husband. And Trump called attention to that, and he called attention to the other individuals who had been shot in critical condition. And I think looking at him come onto the floor of the convention this week, on Monday night, basically 48 hours after he'd been shot, and hearing the applause, but seeing, for the first time I've seen, a quiver. I think that's changed him as well. We'll see. His speech coming up on Thursday night is going to be well attended on the TV as well as in the room, to hear how he's changed it and speaking for unity. And I think, Bart, you and I would agree on that our country needs to be more united. We are too split. And I think as a representative of the people, as a politician myself, I am responsible to be part of that solution. And I hope that the majority of my district see me as a person that hasn't said incendiary things and has been willing to work across the aisle, to work firmly, to say, I don't agree with you on that, but nonetheless, not to take pot shots. And I hope this tragic event with the loss of life, the injury, almost assassination of a president, millimeters of change could
It's unbelievable.
Change the whole story.
It's like a movie. The whole world, we can't believe it.
And see the tracer bullet, the New York Times photographer that got that, to see that track going across. Wow.
Unbelievable. And then it's the day before the convention starts.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. All right, so both sides say they're going to ratchet it down. We'll see.
We'll see.
We'll see how long that lasts. But there have been a lot of calls for some sort of investigation as to how this could even happened. There are pieces of evidence I think we've all seen where the bystanders are pointing to the guy beforehand. How could they have missed that?
And police authorities had seen him beforehand and seen that he had a rangefinder. I think the first thing you would say, it's not illegal to take your rangefinder in, but why?
Yeah. So will there be some sort of a...
Started on Monday. Homeland Security met on Monday and had Secret Service, Oversight Committee met and had Homeland Security in asking these questions. Yesterday they were asking questions of the director of the Secret Service. And she, to her credit, took the blame, said the buck stops here. Mm-hmm. But then the questions comes, why, when we've heard officially that Iran had put a hit out on former President Trump.
Well, they've denied that.
Of course they would.
Yes.
Of course they would.
Well, would they have gotten a 20-year-old kid that works in a nursing home?
Yeah, no, and I'm not saying that that's it, but that would say to me, if I were head of Secret Service, we're going to put extra detail on, not just what he deserves as a former president and a candidate now, but as the nominee at the very least. We're going to put more people on it. Oh, by the way, we're not going to allow any site access within, you name it, what would be expected, but 150 yards, 130 yards, where a young man can get up on a building where there are police inside, we're finding out, and a couple police officers tried to get to him. The gun was put on them. They backed off, and then a few seconds later he shoots at the president.
A lot of second guessing.
A lot of questioning, and I think that's what the American people expect, that we do have a bipartisan, full-blown hearing. This afternoon, 3 o'clock, I'll be on a conference call, bipartisan conference call, getting an update on what's been going on so far. So it has to happen. I mean, this is not how a campaign should be experienced. This causes concerns, and we need to get to the bottom of it.
Well, you and I lived through 68 and the assassinations, 63.
63.
Kennedy, RFK, MLK, the attempts on Gerald Ford, Ronald Reagan. So for 40 years, though, this country hasn't seen it. So for everyone Brandon's age and younger, it's never happened.
And the Secret Service, all the contact I've had with them, I mean, they are outstanding people. But it gets to leadership and what were they told to do or not to do. I've been enough places where we've had presidents, dignitaries, to see how they normally operate. This didn't sound normal.
The Secret Service can say, we are not going to have a rally at this location.
Right.
That we should be seeing more of that, because there have been some places where even more exposure.
Well, when Saturday takes place here in Michigan, and
he's going to be at the Van Andel.
He'll be indoors.
Yeah, indoors.
And I think that's how it's always going to be from here on out.
No more wide open
You
outdoor.
can control it much more.
Yeah. I mean, you could have a drone. You could program a drone to come, and it wouldn't even have to have a gun on it. It could just drive into somebody's face.
But there are ways that drones could be taken out, and they can do that. But why take the risk, especially after this?
Let's talk about the convention. We already know J.D. Vance,
Right.
Senator, first-term senator, in his second year as senator, his only ever elected office is will be the vice presidential nominee for the Republican Party. Mm-hmm. What do you think about him? Do you know him? And not a lot of experience, a lot of youth, but we've known about him because he's been one of the finalists for a few weeks.
He's a solid guy. I've met him on several occasions and had a chance to converse with him. What he brings to the ticket is, of course, youthfulness. He's 39, soon to be 40. He has a story, if you read the Hillbilly Elegy, it's quite a story. He did not come with a silver spoon in his mouth. It may have been a wood spoon, who knows. The family history with a mother who was an addict, a father who left them. He vacillated back and forth, ultimately got on track as a result of some outside intervention. Served in the Marine Corps, went to Yale. I mean, that's not necessarily considered a place where dummies can get into, became an attorney, had some success as an attorney, understands the markets, investments, those type of things. And so you've got a guy with military experience, the first vice president to hopefully be elected, who will have that experience. We'll add that to the ticket that Donald Trump can use. And I think it says to younger generations now, we're passing the torch, and we're not going to pass it necessarily without doing some training. And so J.D. Vance will have on-the-job training as a vice president. He will have a chance to hear from a master of strategy, from a guy who had great success in his first term of office and hopefully a second term, who secured the border, who brought energy independence, who the world respected, even feared at times, who had control of Putin and Xi from perpetrating things except COVID. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. But there were several. I might have picked another person.
Oh, really? Like who?
Well, I like Youngkin. I like Youngkin a lot.
Glenn Youngkin.
Pardon?
Glenn Youngkin.
Yeah.
The West Virginia.
No, the Virginia
governor. Virginia governor.
Who is basically like Trump, except more refined, a business guy, but gets a message out well. And I think the American public could say, subsequent this attempted assassination, if that were actually to happen, Youngkin could take over on day one. I looked at Nikki Haley for the international relations experience that she had as the UN ambassador. She wouldn't have been my first pick, but I think she would have won a lot of the Trump questionnaires that are out there now over. So there were good people on it. But JD, for the Midwest, for the states that are of great consequence, including Michigan, I think JD brings something to the ticket that the others wouldn't.
All right. Well, let's talk about some legislation as the campaign will roll on for the next few months. You've been busy in Washington. You have a bill called the Safeguard American Voter Eligibility Act, the SAVE Act. So we're still dealing with questions as to election security. Yep. Here we are nearly 4 years after the January 6th. So what needs to be legislatively needs to be done? Mm-hmm. What's part of your act?
Well, the fact that only 5 Democrats voted for that bill when it came to the floor in the House and we passed it ought to cause concern. Why would anyone vote against a bill that says some of you states and some of you cities across the country are allowing non-citizens to vote, New York being one of them. DC tried to, and we stopped that. California, there's intense scrutiny on what they're going to be doing.
Isn't it already illegal for?
It is already under federal laws, illegal for a non-citizen to vote. But states are taking their authority and saying, well, we're not going to require voter ID. Well, if you're not requiring voter ID, then how do we know that this person is a voter? Under the National Voter Rights Act, it requires that when a person comes and registers for a driver's license, they're given a form with one checkoff, are you a citizen? Do you think there might be some people now that would lie, especially since they've come over illegally? So
no.
This, you're saying it facetiously, I know that.
Yes.
That's the concern. And so what we did is pass this bill, SAVE Act, with a hope that the Senate will get enough pressure that they could pass it, and Joe Biden ultimately, swinging right now in the balances for his reelect, would say, okay, I'll pass it. That would say to Gretchen Whitmer, our governor, don't you dare attempt to allow citizens or non-citizens to come in and vote without having an ID. You ought to have that. And that's what that bill is simply doing, common sense. If you can't, I was at a restaurant yesterday and an individual wanted some alcohol who looked a lot younger than me. And that person was carded. If we will card someone to drink, why wouldn't we say, just show me your driver's license, show me your state ID card, which is free here in Michigan. And if it matches with the name that you're putting on for voting, Go ahead.
I think they won't let me vote unless I show my.
Me neither. Not in Adrian Township. They won't let me vote.
This week, President Biden said he wants to, or he's indicated he is going to allow some ideas toward building legislation that would enact term limits for the Supreme Court and some enforceable limits on ethics that would have some teeth to them. Is that a good idea?
Well, do you think that he'd be asking for that if President Trump hadn't got 3 conservative Supreme Court justices on? Of course
Well,
not.
I think he wouldn't be asking if there weren't some questionable actions on a couple of on behalf of the two Supreme
Including
Court.
2 other Democrats as well, including Kagan. Some of the similar things that the national media is not talking about. But Clarence Thomas and Alito, and it's not necessarily all them, it's their spouses too. I mean, come on, this is political. And for the president to say, we can't win at the ballot box, so we're going to have to stuff it. I won't say that publicly, but that's 5 Democrats voting for the SAVE Act indicates the overwhelming majority of the Democrats don't want that. SAVE Act, the requirement to show citizenship to vote. The fact that now he wants term limits says we're not willing to wait for a justice to die so we can put one of our own on. We're going to term limit as opposed to letting the court work as it's supposed to over time, over principle, over law, develop their policies.
A lot of people are saying.
I could not support that.
A lot of people are saying, well, you're too old to be president, Mr. Biden. Can't the same argument be toward an 81-year-old Supreme Court justice, that they're too old to be a justice of the Supreme Court?
It certainly could be.
Yeah.
And some have said that the Democrats lost out when they couldn't get the last Democrat Supreme Court justice to leave in time before she died to do that very thing. But again, that can come through various means to get people to step up to the plate and leave the court. We know Supreme Court justices who have left at an aged position, seeing the fact that they didn't feel like they were capable of doing the workload anymore, et cetera. So if we go back to the Federalist Papers and we read what our amazing founders of this country debated, and they debated term limits for Congress, for the presidency. They came up with the 2-term requirement for the president. They didn't come up with it for Congress because they had a rationale behind that. The same for the Supreme Court, to keep them very much separate from the other 2 branches of government and keep them out of politics. That hasn't necessarily worked, but it does give the opportunity for presidents over time to change and rearrange the direction of the Supreme Court as well. So I would hesitate to support anything that went against the arguments of our framers and founders, because they wrestle with those things. And so far, for the most part, it works. The pendulum swings.
All right, you're in Jackson. You were out real quick on a couple of site visits today.
Yeah, we have been. One was over at BAS Chemitol, that amazing chemical plant that you hear little about because mistakes haven't been made that's caused any problem out there. They make coatings, not only for the auto industry, but for aviation, et cetera. And they do some things there that are done no other place. And we have them in Jackson. So it was fun to go through. I was there, Debbie Stab and I were there to cut the ribbon back in 2012 when it opened. I've been there once since then, not before BASF bought them, but what an operation they have, and I'm proud that it's in a district. And that's a good thing about getting back and seeing what's in your district. It's pretty impressive.
All right. Well, we appreciate you taking time to come in and be with us today.
Thanks for having me.
Good to see you. Our Congressman representing the 5th District in Michigan, Tim Walberg.